Hello students, welcome to week 3 for COM 420, Global Digital Engagement. This week we're looking at global communication campaigns, so we're going to provide some overview material about that. That will help with some of your assignments, as well as look into some of the content from chapter 5 and 6 in the course reading. As you look through the week 3 agenda, you can see we have 3 different things that we're reading. We're reading chapter 5 and 6 in our course text, as well as reading the handout posted in Blackboard about the slave route awareness. That handout is directly tied to your assignment on the global communication campaign analysis. So do make sure you go through that. In addition to that, we're watching videos all related to the Slave Route Awareness Project. It's all tied directly into your Global Communication Campaign Analysis, your DCCA number 1. In addition to that, you are completing discussion board number 3, and be mindful of the due dates of those. As we move into some of the assignments, please keep in mind that you'll be writing at least 300 words for your original post, and then you'll be writing 150 words for your replies. After reading chapters 5 and 6 this week in the discussion board, you're going to compare and contrast the main points of the chapters. So look at what they're both discussing and look for similarities and differences within the chapters. You'll see that there are some stark differences, but there's also some pretty surprising similarities in the course readings this week that relate in part to what we're doing with our global communication analysis project. After you've done that, analyze the chapters and determine the importance of the internet and its development of the global communication strategies, and how the internet as a concept as a whole has really confirmed some of McLuhan's thoughts about a global village, which is outlined in some of the videos for this week. Additionally, make sure that you provide a reflection about how communication technologies have enhanced our ability to communicate globally about international issues. And so keep that in mind. Remember, you do need to reply to at least 2 other students no later than Sunday. If you have any questions, let me know. The Global Communication Campaign Analysis, you're going to be doing 2 of these this semester. The first one is going to look at the 20th anniversary of the UNECO Slave Route Awareness Project. And so in relation to this, you do need to take a look at it and see some of the things that I've provided. And then the second one that'll be due later on in the semester is related to the World Health Organization's coverage of the Ebola crisis. So for this first one, we're focusing on the UNECO's Slave Route Awareness Project. In the course module in week 3, there's all the information you'll need to complete it, but it is encouraged that you look at the UNECO's site about this particular campaign they did. It was an international global campaign that really sought to build awareness about the slave route, which we'll get into in a second. So to complete this campaign analysis successfully, you'll watch all the videos posted in the weekly module about the topic, and you'll read the handout provided about the Slave Route Awareness Project, and then you're also going to do a web content analysis related to the topic. And what I simply mean by that is you're going to Google the UNECO Slave Route Awareness Project, see what you can find out there about that on social media, traditional media, and on the internet, and see what coverage it received and things of that nature, so you can analyze the campaign's communication goals or determine what you think some of the goals may have been. So this will be in APA format. That's cover page, abstract, all the good stuff there, running headers and such, and will need to be at least 3 pages in length. Remember, let's just be reference page count deals with the actual written content. So your cover page, abstract, and reference pages do not count within the 3 pages. I need to see 3 complete pages of written content about your campaign analysis. Once you've completed all kind of the nuts and bolts, then you're actually going to answer the following things to conduct your analysis. So there are 5 things that you'll do in your analysis. The first thing you're going to do is provide a summary or situational analysis of the topic. So in this particular section, this is where you summarize the information for the reader. You give them a good overview of what the Slave Route Awareness Project was, what the goals were, why UNECO decided to do it, what they represent, all of that stuff, and then you're going to conduct a situation analysis. You're going to look at all the information I provided you about the topic and what you found to determine what is the problem prior to them launching this campaign in 1994, because it was 20 years. So you'll look at it and you can see a number of things. You can say, I found that there wasn't a lot of information out there about this globally. You need to determine that there was a need for this campaign and a situational analysis, and tell me why there was a need for this campaign at the time that it was launched. Once you've done that, you'll analyze and share all global media coverage related to the topic. You'll compare the dissemination of the coverage. So remember, dissemination of media or dissemination of the coverage just means how it was spread out across multiple media platforms. So who said what about it on what different networks or different mediums like social media, internet, things of that nature. You will need to do that and compare the dissemination across the concepts within the course readings and theories covered within the course to date. So any of the readings from week 1 through week 3, and provide at least 3 media examples of web posts, pictures, and media coverage. A hint, you should look for things beyond what I've provided you in the weekly module. However, I have provided you with enough of this within the weekly module links and such already. After you've done that, you need to determine how effective the coverage of this topic was in building awareness of the topic and globally communicating the topic to the world. So what I want you to do is tell me how effective you think UNECO was in spreading awareness about the Slave Route Project. Looking at all of the stuff they provided, were they effective in doing this at a global level? So communicating this to a global community, not specifically the US or a country in Europe or a country in Africa or any of that things. How effective were they in spreading and communicating this topic to the world? Make sure you share how the communication could have possibly been improved or how it may be exemplary in its current form. If it needs improvement, make sure you provide an action plan. If it does not, then create a plan for re-implementing the campaign now using all digital media tools. So think about this. The project began in 1994 and ended in 2014. So through that 20-year span, it saw some revolutionary changes in how we disseminate media and communication campaigns, utilizing new media and digital media strategies. So if you think it's exemplary in its current form and across the 20 years you saw it adapt to things like YouTube, Instagram, things of that nature, that's fine. If you didn't, no matter what, I want to see a re-implementation campaign. So if they were to reenact this campaign now for another 3 or 4 years and they only solely took it online, so they only used digital media, they didn't use any print or anything like that, what would you suggest they do? That's what that section asks for. And then the last thing you'll do is provide a reflection of the campaign as a whole and integrate Christian perspectives of how thinking Christianly and things of that nature could help with the communicative aspects of this topic and a communication plan. So consider how, as Christians or spreading this from a church perspective, we could use a topic like this to think Christianly and provide some biblical foundations and messages that the Bible would tell us to do or Christ would tell us to do as Christians. As you look through this a little more deeply, you should be able to develop this in at least 3 pages without any issues. If you have some questions on it, let me know. I'm definitely here to reach out to you and to help you with this. But if not, then I look forward to reading your analyses. Some background on UNECO's Slave Route Campaign. So like I mentioned in the description, it began in 1994. Essentially, the organization decided to work to build awareness of the slave route from Africa to Europe and the US to shed light really primarily on, one, the deplorable treatment and living conditions of those forced into slavery, but to build short-term goals that were just building awareness generally about historical slave routes, treatments and conditions of slaves, as well as shedding light on new and contemporary forms of slavery worldwide. So they wanted to tell the world, hey, let's not forget what happened to all of these Africans hundreds and hundreds of years ago. What happened wasn't right and it wasn't okay. And we want to build awareness about that and use communication to tell the world that we have not forgotten their roots and that we as human beings and Christians or even just humans in general should not forget how terrible this was for them. And not only that, they said, you know what, and we also want you to know that slavery has not gone away. There are still new and contemporary forms of how we have slavery today with sex trafficking and things of that nature. So they wanted to build light and shed light on all of that. Some of their programmatic goals that began in this campaign were: 1, break the silence on the slave trade and slavery in various regions of the world; 2, shed light on the traumas and consequences of those events and the multiple transformations they brought about, as well as exploring cultural interactions born to these forced encounters, which they have given rise to great diversity within our societies. And then the third programmatic goal was to contribute to reflection on new challenges and stakes in modern society that needed addressing. So if you look at that, those are pretty broad. So as you go through the campaign, kind of think about what their programmatic goals were and what they did to achieve those. Once they launched the global communication campaign, they used traditional new media technologies, like I said, over a 20-year span from 94 to 2014 to spread awareness of this topic. Primarily, their goal was really to ignite attitude changes towards his current historical rhetoric about slavery. So they wanted to challenge what's in typical history books and what the mainstream media and things say about what slavery was and why we've rationalized why slaves were used worldwide and things of that nature. They want to ignite attitude changes about that. They wanted people to say, hey, you know what? Let's look at this from the perspective of the native Africans that were stripped from their countries and what happened to them when they were forced into this. A primary result found that the campaign contributed substantially to fostering greater awareness of ethical, political, and socioeconomic, as well as cultural aspects of this chapter in history. So they met that goal. What you'll see is that they did meet a lot of their goals, but you'll look in there and see how maybe using digital technologies today, they might have been a little more successful, or it may have gone mainstream in a lot more countries to help with that. As you look through the course content this week, you'll see a lot of information about the Global Village. So to give you some background on that, we're going to talk about Marshall McLuhan. Marshall McLuhan is known as one of the greatest mass communication theorists of his time, and really just of any time. Born in 1921, passed away in 1980. He actually fell into media analysis and became a mass communication theorist on accident. His academic training was in English and literary analyses. So he was a literary analyst. He studied the works of others and books and things like that, and related everything to English in terms of being a professor. That's what he worked as. He dabbled in mass communication and looking at communication technologies because he found it fascinating. It was more of a hobby for him. And in turn ended up becoming known as one of our greatest mass communication theorists, or as one of my old professors told me, an accidental mass comm theorist. So with that, he coined some notable phrases as the global village and the medium as the message in the 1960s. So keep that in mind as we move through what I'm going to explain to you about him. And so as you think about that, these are 1960s, the primary communication technologies at the time were the television, the radio, and the telephone. Those were supposedly revolutionary in changing the way that we communicate. So keep that in mind. With that, he said, the medium is the message. And with this term, he used it figuratively and literally to say it's not about what we're saying to each other. We're always saying the same things to each other. It's the mediums we're using to say the things we're saying with that matter. And so to put it simply, he said, it doesn't matter what you say on the phone, in print, or watch on TV, or write it on a piece of paper. It doesn't matter what you use to say what you have to say. It's the medium that you use that speaks larger to society about where we are in terms of technology with society than what we're actually saying. So students and professors, I give this analogy a lot. Students and professors have the same thing to say to each other throughout the course of time. 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, students and professors have a lot of similar interactions. There's always going to be students that have questions about assignments, and there's always going to be professors there to answer them. 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, you would stand outside of your professor's office and hope to reach them. Maybe 20 years ago, you would call the professor's secretary to set an appointment. 10 years ago, you would send an email. 5 years ago, maybe you could connect with them on Facebook if you were really close to them. Today, you can connect with them on the phone. I can answer your question on my phone via email. So the questions students haven't changed. We're still related to assignment-related things. However, the medium we use speaks volumes. That really is the message to talk about and discuss as to where we are as having technology having some type of societal influence on ourselves. So if you consider it with that, it speaks more from McLuhan's perspective that we use our phones, if we're going to call them that, they're really mini computers in our pocket, to speak on it to another person, to watch news or watch movies or whatever, to connect on social media, to communicate instantly with society rather than writing a letter, rather than using the television or listening to the radio, or to talk on the phone. Essentially, the smartphone in my pocket, I can speak to somebody on it, I can watch a news brief, I can listen to the radio or any music that I want, I can see updates into the people's lives that are close to me through social media and communicate with them on there, I can answer emails, I can purchase items, I can do any kind of research, and it's at my fingertips at any given moment, all by the device. So the medium I'm using, that communication technology of a smartphone, speaks volumes to what we have to say about how technologies and communicative technologies, communication technology devices like a smartphone, mean to our society and impact it today. So that's what he was saying. It's not about what we're saying. We're saying the same things over and over again, just in different generations. It's the medium we're using to say those things now that are most important. So on the flip side, he said, look, the medium is the message, but now we live in a global village. He theorized that with the new age of electronic communication, mind you, just television, radio, and phone, had shrunk the world to the size of a village, that we live in this mass globe, and we thought we couldn't reach people in other countries for days or weeks or months on end, is now down to the size of a small village. I can pick up my phone and Skype or FaceTime somebody in an instant anywhere in the world, see their face, and get some face-to-face communication with them instantly through my device rather than spending weeks or months or years waiting to see them again. So when you think about the concept of a global village and you're doing your global communication campaign analysis, think about how that relates to the communication they're sending out and how they're using this idea of a global village using electronic communication or communication technologies to bring us closer together and communicate more, connect interpersonally with one another. To recap, we're reading chapters 5 and 6. We're reading the Slave Route Awareness handout. You're watching 4 videos related to the Global Communication Campaign Analysis assignment, and you're completing discussion board number 3. So please make sure you are mindful of all the due dates and you get all of those in on time. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I look forward to interacting with you. You have a blessed week.